If you look at the data, the single most effective intervention for someone experiencing severe societal rejection, well, it isn't always a medical prescription.
Right. Or even, a specialized therapy session.
Exactly. Sometimes it weighs 10 pounds, sits in a cardboard box, and outright refuses to fetch.
Which is just a phenomenal paradox, really. You have individuals navigating this incredibly complex systemic exclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the psychological anchor they end up relying on is a creature that operates entirely on its own terms, often just, communicating by blinking slowly from across the room.
Yeah, which brings us to the month of June. Welcome to our deep dive into a really unexpected but profound intersection.
It really is.
Today, we're unpacking the collision of two major June events. We've got Pride Month and Adopt a Shelter Cat Month.
Two things you wouldn't normally put in the same sentence.
No, not at all. So we're looking at this fascinating campaign put together by the pet wellness brand A+ Pets. It's titled Pride, Paws and Purpose, Love, Chosen Family, and Shelter Cats.
Right.
And what immediately caught my eye wasn't even the data at first. It was the visual branding of the campaign itself.
Oh, the logo change.
Yes. They created this vibrant, deep violet to coral rainbow gradient logo, and it features this really minimalist line art silhouette of a cat with a little rainbow heart floating right above it.
Which is a striking contrast to their usual corporate identity. Normally the standard A+ Pets logo is very clinical.
Right, it's that bold blue letter A.
Exactly. The blue A and the word Pete's integrated with a white medical cross. It projects, clinical authority, animal wellness.
Very hospital chic.
Right. But by shifting to this gradient, art-forward design for the campaign, they are intentionally signaling that clinical wellness isn't just about physical health.
It's about a lot more than that.
It is. True wellness requires psychological safety, inclusive care, and belonging. They're essentially blending healthcare with heart.
I love that because, if you're looking at a calendar, a civil rights celebration and a pet adoption drive seem like they occupy completely, just entirely different lanes.
Totally.
It looks like a quirky scheduling coincidence. But the deeper you look into this A+ Pets research, the more you realize these two events are telling the exact same story.
They really are.
They're deeply intertwined through the radical concept of chosen family and really just the universal human need to belong.
And that's basically our roadmap for this conversation for you all listening today. We need to explore the underlying sociology that connects these events, right?
Mm-hmm.
Break down the actual physiological science of the human-animal bond and look at the tangible systemic changes required to protect these vulnerable populations.
Both human and feline.
Exactly, both human and feline.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the mechanics of why these two events are happening simultaneously right now.
Right, the why June question.
Yeah. So most of us know that Pride Month is rooted in the 1969 Stonewall Uprising. It's an observance fundamentally about resistance, about the demand to just exist visibly and authentically.
Yeah.
But what's wild is how that exact same demand maps onto a completely different crisis happening in the animal welfare world, which is Adopt a Shelter Cat Month.
Right, championed by organizations like the ASPCA and American Humane.
Yeah. And this month doesn't just happen in June for the sake of marketing. It is a direct response to a biological and, honestly, logistical nightmare called kitten season.
Yeah, and the term kitten season sounds incredibly charming.
It sounds adorable.
It does. Until you look at the structural reality of it, cats are what we call seasonally polyestrous.
Okay, science term. What does that actually mean?
It basically means that as the days get longer and the weather warms up in spring and summer, unspayed female cats go into heat. And because cats are incredibly efficient reproducers, a single unspayed female and her subsequent offspring can cascade into tens of thousands of cats over just a few years.
Tens of thousands from one cat.
Yes, it's exponential.
I look at the shelter data during this period, and the only way my brain can process it is to think of it like a massive distributed denial of service, like a DDoS attack on a city's infrastructure.
Oh, that's a really good analogy.
Right. Just like a server that is designed to handle maybe 50 requests a minute suddenly getting hit with 5,000 requests. A local shelter built to humanely house 50 animals gets flooded with 500 kittens in a single week.
And the infrastructure just breaks.
Exactly. The physical cages fill up instantly. The budget for food and medical supplies evaporates. The staff is pushed past the brink of exhaustion. The entire system literally crashes.
And in the context of animal welfare, a crashed system means euthanasia.
Yeah.
It means thousands of lives are completely overlooked because there simply isn't enough bandwidth to care for them.
It's just devastating.
It is. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, that specific trauma of being overlooked, of sitting in a holding pattern waiting for someone to recognize your inherent worth, that is the exact thematic bridge to Pride Month.
Wow. Yeah, I see that.
Both of these communities, marginalized queer individuals and shelter animals, they understand what it means to be deemed surplus or disposable by the broader system. Both events are ultimately celebrating the radical act of choosing to love someone despite the world's indifference.
See, I look at this chosen family comparison, and my immediate cynical reaction is that this is just a really clever, poetic marketing metaphor by a pet wellness brand.
Sure, it sounds good on paper.
Right. It sounds nice to say that outcasts find each other. But then I look at the actual sociological survival data cited by A-plus Pets, and it completely dismantled my cynicism.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Is this just a poetic metaphor, or is there a measurable, tangible reality to pets acting as a survival strategy?
Oh, the data forces you to take the concept literally. It's not just poetry. Let's look at the 2024 survey conducted by Lily's Kitchen and the research firm 3Gem.
Okay.
They found that 52% of LGBTQ plus pet owners feel closer to their pets than to members of their biological family.
Over half.
Over half, 52%. That is a staggering metric. It means we aren't talking about pets as a fun accessory to a household. For the majority of these respondents, the animal is the structural foundation of the household.
Exactly. To understand why that number is so high, you have to look at the mechanics of the chosen family.
Right.
For queer people who have faced rejection from their biological relatives, people who have been told implicitly or explicitly that they do not belong in their own homes, building a chosen family isn't a social luxury.
No, it's survival.
It is a necessary psychological survival strategy. You construct a network of care that is not defined by blood or legal documents, but by loyalty, shared safety, and mutual unconditional acceptance.
Yeah.
When a queer person walks into a crowded, chaotic shelter and locks eyes with a cat that has been sitting in a cage for 6 months and decides to take that animal home, that is the most elemental, distilled form of chosen family.
And it's a two-way street of validation, too. The human is validating the animal's right to live, but the animal is validating the human's right to be loved.
Beautifully put.
Which brings us to the clinical data, actually. Because the campaign doesn't just rely on survey anecdotes. It dives into a major 2024 study published in Frontiers in Psychiatry that looked at how companion animals impact the mental health of young adults.
This study is fascinating.
It really is. And they didn't just find that pets make people happy. They identified specific, measurable psychiatric interventions.
Yeah, the study breaks down 5 distinct mechanisms. First, pets actively reduce generalized anxiety and panic.
Okay, yeah.
Second, they alleviate low mood and depression. Third, they support recovery from severe mental health episodes.
Which is huge.
Massive. Fourth, they act as a preventative measure, helping individuals stay well over the long term. And fifth, they foster a measurable positive outlook on the future.
But I want to push on that first point, the reduction of anxiety and panic. Because earlier we talked about unpacking the how, not just the what.
Right, the mechanics of it.
Yeah. When someone is having a panic attack, their sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive. They are in fight or flight. It's not magic that a cat stops this. It's physiological.
It really is.
A cat's purr operates at a frequency of between 25 and 140 hertz. And medical research has shown that sound frequencies in this exact range can actually lower human blood pressure.
Wow.
Yeah, it slows an elevated heart rate and stimulates the vagus nerve to physically ground an anxious mind.
That is incredible.
Right. The cat is literally functioning as a biological metronome, forcing the human's nervous system to co-regulate and calm down.
That physiological grounding is critical, especially when you filter it through the lens of the LGBTQ plus community's daily experience.
Absolutely.
Because if we go back to that Lily's Kitchen survey, they found that 91% of LGBTQ plus pet owners consider their pet essential to their mental health.
5%.
Yeah. 89% actively turn to their pets in times of emotional need. And this next one is the statistic that reveals the mechanism of survival. 67% specifically use their pets to cope with experiences of discrimination or bias.
Because the animal provides a buffer against systemic hostility.
Exactly.
MentalHealthCTR.com points out that pets offer completely non-judgmental companionship. If you are navigating workplace discrimination or political hostility or family estrangement, you are spending your entire day masking.
Exhausting yourself, really.
Yeah, you are constantly monitoring how you are perceived. But your cat does not care about your gender identity. Your cat does not care about your sexuality.
No, not at all.
Your cat cares that you exist and that you are present.
There is a fantastic quote included in the campaign from Ginny Lemon, a performer from RuPaul's Drag Race UK.
Oh, I love Ginny Lemon.
Right. Well, they noted, you can go from absolute sorrow to bliss just by seeing a little furry baby.
Oh, that's so true.
And what Ginny is describing there is the sudden, jarring relief of dropping the mask. The routine and structure of keeping another creature alive provides a profound sense of purpose that just counteracts the exhaustion of living in a marginalized identity.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We have to talk about the specific psychology of cats. Because cats are not dogs.
Definitely not.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that distinction is vital to why this specific community bonds so deeply with them. Dogs have been bred for thousands of years for eager compliance. A dog generally wants to please whoever has the treats.
Right. They perform affection on demand.
Exactly. But cats are wired entirely for consent.
That is a brilliant distinction. You cannot command a cat to love you.
You really can't.
You cannot force a cat to sit on your lap. If you try to enforce your will on a cat, they will simply leave the room. They require you to respect their autonomy and their physical boundaries.
Right. And because they are so fiercely independent, the act of a cat actively choosing to cross the room, jump onto the couch, and settle in beside you, it's a quiet, profound affirmation.
It really is.
They are saying, completely on their own terms, that you are a safe harbor. You are worthy of their company.
Yeah.
For someone whose identity or bodily autonomy has been questioned, legislated against, or invalidated by the outside world, having an independent creature voluntarily choose them, that is a staggeringly powerful form of psychological validation. You earn a cat's trust, and in doing so, you prove to yourself that you are trustworthy.
That dynamic is exactly how these animals are saving their owners emotionally. But, we also have to confront the reality of how the owners are saving these animals physically.
Right, the stakes.
Because the shelter crisis we touched on earlier isn't theoretical. The A+ Pets campaign pulls data from the Shelter Animals Count 2024 year-end report, and the sheer scale of the situation is daunting.
The numbers are incredibly heavy. Let's look at them. In 2024, an estimated 2.9 million cats entered shelters in the United States.
2.9 million.
Yeah. Now, about 2 million of those were adopted out. That is a 64% adoption rate, which is the highest we've seen since 2019. And that is a massive triumph for the people working in animal welfare.
It is a triumph, yes. But the math leaves a devastating remainder.
Yeah, it does.
Despite that record adoption rate, approximately 273,000 cats were euthanized in that same year. And the reason we discuss these statistics isn't to induce guilt, but to highlight the immense stakes of a single adoption.
And it's so important to remember that behind that massive 273,000 number are individual animals with highly distinct personalities.
Absolutely. They aren't just numbers.
Right. The campaign breaks down the different temperaments you find waiting in shelters, and you can see exactly how these different cats map onto different human psychological needs.
Like the lap cat.
Yeah, the lap cat, who offers constant physical touch for someone dealing with acute loneliness. You have the independent spirit, who provides low-pressure companionship for busy professionals who might just need a quiet presence in the room.
Right, or the playful adventurer.
Yes. Who forces an owner dealing with depression to get up and actively engage in play. You have the gentle soul, a quiet, cautious cat that is perfect for co-regulating with a human who is managing trauma or severe anxiety. And then you have the senior cat.
The senior cat is arguably the most critical demographic we can discuss.
Why is that?
Because they are almost always the last to be adopted. People naturally gravitate toward kittens, especially during kitten season. But senior cats offer this incredibly steady, grounded energy. They already know who they are.
Which perfectly sets up the story of Jordan and Biscuit from the campaign.
Oh, this story's amazing.
It is. So Jordan is a young queer person who moved to a brand new city after a really traumatic coming-out experience. They're completely isolated, disconnected from their biological family, and dealing with intense depressive spirals.
Just a really tough spot to be in.
Yeah. So they walk into a local shelter just to look around. And they don't find a tiny, energetic kitten. They find Biscuit, a 3-year-old tabby, who had been sitting in a cage entirely overlooked for 4 months.
Think about the mechanism of that interaction. You have a human who feels discarded by their community, locking eyes with an animal that has literally been discarded by its community.
Exactly.
Jordan adopts Biscuit, and suddenly the depression doesn't have a vacuum to exist in anymore. Jordan has to get out of bed because Biscuit needs to be fed.
Right, there's a routine now.
Jordan has to establish a routine. The responsibility of caretaking actually pulls the human out of the anxious spiral. As Jordan put it, I didn't rescue Biscuit, Biscuit rescued me.
And then there's the story of the same-sex couple that completely flips the script on how we approach kitten season.
Marigold's story.
Yes. They'd been together for 7 years, finally bought a house with a yard, and went to the shelter with the explicit goal of getting a kitten. They had the whole narrative planned out in their heads.
Like so many people do.
Right. But instead, they walk through the kennels and meet Marigold. Marigold is a 12-year-old tortoiseshell cat, a senior. She had been surrendered entirely, through no fault of her own, simply because her previous owner had to transition into an assisted living facility.
It is heartbreaking. A cat lives its entire life in a quiet, loving home, and suddenly, at 12 years old, it is thrust into the sensory overload of a shelter.
It's got to be terrifying.
The noise, the smells, the physical confinement, it is absolutely terrifying for a senior animal.
But Marigold didn't hide. She walked right up to the front of the cage, looked directly at one of the partners, and just sat down with this absolute quiet certainty.
I love that.
Right. They abandoned their plan for a kitten and adopted her that day. She taught them that love rarely arrives in the pristine package you expected, and that the most meaningful relationships are often the ones you never planned for.
So true.
It just highlights the immense untapped value of these older cats who still have so much affection to give, but are constantly passed over for the younger models.
What's fascinating here is the sheer logistical power of Marigold's adoption. We call it the ripple effect.
Okay, tell me about that.
When that couple took Marigold out of her cage, they didn't just save Marigold. By emptying that specific kennel, they immediately created the physical space required to save the next cat coming through the intake door.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. They reduced the financial strain on the shelter's medical budget. They boosted the morale of the shelter staff who had been worried sick about this 12-year-old cat. One single act of creating a chosen family structurally impacts the entire animal welfare system in that community.
But, and this is a massive, but
Yeah.
for those stories to actually happen, the system itself has to function in a way that allows a queer person to walk through those shelter doors without hitting a wall of friction.
Yes, this is crucial.
Given the life or death stakes for the cats and the proven psychiatric benefits for the LGBTQ plus community, we have to examine how the system, the shelters and the rescues, must adapt. Because if a shelter isn't actively, visibly inclusive, people simply won't feel safe engaging with it.
That is the core systemic issue. Imagine you are a transgender individual or a same-sex couple, and you walk into a rescue to adopt. If the intake forms only have boxes for husband and wife, or if the staff repeatedly uses the wrong pronouns or makes subtle judgments about your non-traditional household, the friction becomes too high.
Yeah, you just want to leave.
You feel alienated, you turn around, and you walk out. And the ultimate tragedy is that the cat sitting in the back room loses its chance at a home because the human infrastructure failed.
Right. Inclusion in animal welfare isn't about being polite. It is a functional, operational necessity.
Absolutely.
If a shelter's core mission is to save animals, then allowing any barrier to adoption to exist, especially a barrier based on bias or outdated assumptions, is a direct failure of that mission.
So what does inclusive animal welfare actually look like in practice? How do we fix the system?
Well, the A+ Pets campaign lays out a very clear framework for modernizing rescues. It begins with comprehensive staff training.
Okay.
Staff must be trained to use correct pronouns and to completely abandon assumptions about what a normal family dynamic looks like. It also involves visible, immediate signals of safety.
Like what? Something as simple as placing a pride flag in the front window fundamentally changes adoption metrics because it instantly lowers the resting heart rate of a queer person walking up to the building.
Wow. That simple.
It signals, before a word is even spoken, that they will not have to defend their identity here.
It also means updating policies, right? Shelters need to actively partner with local LGBTQ plus community centers. They need to ensure their marketing materials reflect diverse households. They have to actively amplify queer voices in their outreach.
Yes. It is about systematically removing every single point of friction between a willing, capable adopter and an animal that desperately needs them.
And this framework leads directly into actionable steps for anyone listening who wants to intervene in this crisis.
Because there is so much you can do.
Exactly. The first step is assessing your own capacity. You have to look at your lifestyle, your finances, and your mental bandwidth.
You have to be realistic.
Right. Resources like Pet Finder or specific local organizations. The campaign highlights the Associated Humane Societies, particularly their Newark shelter, are excellent places to begin understanding what the actual needs are in your specific zip code.
Yes, and while adoption is the ultimate goal, it is not the only way to save a life. Fostering is arguably just as critical, especially right now during the peak of kitten season.
Let's talk about the mechanics of fostering.
So, when a pregnant cat or a nursing mother with a litter of newborns ends up in a shelter, their chance of survival plummets.
Really, just from being there.
Yes. The stress of the noise and the proximity to disease in a shelter environment can cause a mother cat to stop producing milk entirely.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is. Fostering means you simply provide a quiet spare bedroom or a bathroom for a few weeks so that cat can nurse in peace. It is a temporary commitment that acts as a literal biological lifesaver.
Beyond fostering, there is financial and material support too. Shelters run on incredibly thin margins. Donating funds or even just dropping off clean towels, formula, and food keeps the system from crashing.
Every little bit helps.
And even if you have zero disposable income and zero square footage in your home, you possess digital real estate. Sharing a local shelter's adoption profile for a senior cat on your social media feed expands that animal's visibility exponentially.
It really does. A single retweet or Instagram story can bypass the shelter's limited foot traffic and put that cat directly in front of the person who will take them home.
Every single one of those actions, whether it's fostering a terrified mother cat, donating a bag of food, or just amplifying a post, is a tangible way of manifesting the core values of both Pride Month and Adopt a Shelter Cat Month. You are actively participating in the creation of chosen family.
This raises an important question, though, about how we view our own agency. When we look at these two overlapping June events, we aren't just observing a sociological phenomenon, we're looking at a blueprint for resilience.
So let's pull all of this together for you all listening. We've explored how the vibrant, vocal, defiant celebration of Pride Month perfectly aligns with the quiet, steady devotion of Adopt a Shelter Cat Month.
It is a stunning intersection.
It really is, and it makes total sense once you look at the mechanics of the human heart. It all comes down to finding a safe space, being seen for who you truly are, and making the radical choice to build your family.
Exactly.
Whether you identify as LGBTQ plus USA, whether you consider yourself a dedicated pet parent, or if you are just someone trying to navigate what can be a deeply exhausting and lonely world, the message here is universal. Love expands when we open our doors. We really want to thank A+ Pets for looking beyond clinical wellness to highlight this beautiful structural intersection.
I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you go about your week. We spend an enormous amount of time and energy in life searching for communities that will accept us.
We really do.
We constantly look outward for validation, hoping someone will care for us and tell us we belong. But considering the profound physiological and emotional shifts caused by adopting a shelter pet, how the simple act of keeping them alive anchors our own nervous system, how much of our own healing and survival is actually unlocked not by who cares for us, but by who we courageously choose to care for.
So the next time you look at a calendar and see two completely different events sharing the exact same month, don't just write it off as a scheduling quirk. Sometimes it's an invitation to see how perfectly the broken pieces of the world can fit together.